In this video, we're going to look at saints born on the 16th of every month. Saint Marcellus I, a pope and martyr who led the church after the persecutions of Emperor Diocletian. Other saints commemorated on this date include Saint Priscilla, a Roman matron, and Saint Fossa, an Irish monastic founder. Saint Marcellus I, Pope from late 308 or 309 until his death, reorganized the church after the persecution of Diocletian, established rules for penance for those who had renounced their faith, the lapacy, and worked to restore the church's infrastructure. Death, exiled from Rome by Emperor Maxentius due to riots caused by the lapacy, and died in exile, leading to his recognition as a martyr. Other saints: Saint Priscilla, a Roman matron of the 1st century, often identified as the wife of Aquila. She is associated with early Christian catechesis and the catacombs on the Via Salaria that were later named after her. Saint Fossa, an Irish abbot and missionary who founded monasteries in Ireland and France. He was a 7th century abbot who later became a missionary in the Frankish kingdom. Saint Denex the Reader, a 2nd century martyr from Macedonia, who was killed by pagans for refusing to worship idols and trying to protect the church's vessels. Saints remembered on February 16th include Saint Onesimus, the runaway slave who became a bishop. Other saints celebrated on this day are the Virgin Martyr Juliana of Nicomedia, the martyrs Pamphilus and his companions in Palestine, Saint Marathas of Mesopotamia, and Pope Gregory X. Notable saints on February 16th: Saint Onesimus, the patron saint of forgiveness. Onesimus was a slave who ran away from his master, Philemon, but was sent back by the Apostle Paul to become a leader in the Church of Colossae. Juliana of Nicomedia, a popular martyr from the early church. Juliana was a Christian who was persecuted and tortured for refusing to renounce her faith. Martyrs Pamphilus and his companions, a group of martyrs who suffered during the Diocletianic persecution at Caesarea in Palestine, including the priest Pamphilus and the deacon Valens. Saint Marathas, a bishop who founded the city of Martyropolis and was known for his piety and writings about martyrs. Pope Gregory X. He was a pope from the 13th century who is also remembered as a saint. Saint John de Brebeuf, a French Jesuit missionary known as the Apostle to the Hurons, is honored on March 16 for his martyrdom in 1649. Other saints also commemorated on this date include Saint Joseph Gabriel of the Rosary, a Catholic priest who suffered from leprosy, and Saint Hilary of Aquileia. Saints commemorated on March 16th: Saint John de Brebeuf, a French Jesuit missionary who worked with the Huron people in New France, Canada. He was captured and tortured to death by the Iroquois on March 16, 1649, and is known as a patron saint of Canada. Saint Joseph Gabriel of the Rosary, Cura Brochero, an Argentine Catholic priest who spent his life ministering to the poor and sick, including those with leprosy. He died in 1914. Saint Hilary of Aquileia, an Italian bishop who was beheaded along with his companions, including the deacon Tatian, for their Christian faith. Other saints, various other saints, particularly from the Eastern Orthodox and other traditions, are also commemorated on this day. These include Saint Sabinus of Egypt, martyr; Saint Paps of Laconia, martyr; Saint Serapion, Archbishop of Novgorod; Saint Aristobulus of the 70, Apostle, Bishop of Britain. The primary saint celebrated on April 16th is Saint Bernadette Soubirous, French nun known for her apparitions of the Virgin Mary in Lourdes. She is a patron saint of the sick, those ridiculed for their faith. Lourdes itself, on her feast day, commemorates the anniversary of her death in 1879. Who she was. Bernadette Soubirous was born into a poor family in Lourdes, France, and suffered from poor health throughout her life. The apparitions. At age 14, she reported 18 visions of a beautiful lady in a grotto who identified herself as the Immaculate Conception. Legacy. The visions led to the construction of a shrine in Lourdes, which became a major pilgrimage site. A spring appeared at the site where she was told to dig, which is still flowing today. Feast day. Her feast day is April 16th, the date of her death from tuberculosis in 1879. She was canonized as a saint by the Catholic Church in 1933. Saint Simon Stock, Saint Brendan the Navigator, and Saint Honoratus of Amiens are among the saints honored on May 16th. Saint Simon Stock is known for his vision of the Virgin Mary and the brown scapular. Saint Brendan is an Irish monastic saint, famous for his legendary voyages across the Atlantic. Saint Honoratus is the patron saint of bakers and confectioners. Saints of May 16th. Saint Simon Stock, 1165 1265, an English Carmelite friar. He is credited with the brown scapular devotion after a vision from the Virgin Mary in 1251. Saint Brendan the Navigator, 484-577, an Irish abbot. He is known for his legendary quest for the Isle of the Blessed. Saint Honoratus of Amiens, 653, a bishop of Amiens, France. He is the patron saint of bakers and confectioners. Saint Margaret of Cortona, 1247-1297, known as a penitent and mystic, she founded a group to help the sick and poor. Saint Baldus of Gubbio, 1085-1160, an Italian bishop who led an austere life and was devoted to his office. Other saints commemorated. The feast day also includes other saints, particularly in Eastern Orthodox traditions, such as Saint Cassian and Saint Lawrence. And then we have June. June 16th is the feast day for Saint John Francis Regis, a French Jesuit priest known for his zealous missionary work. He is also the feast day for Saint Lugardus, a 12th century Benedictine nun and mystic, and Saints Quirisus and Julietta, martyrs. Saint John Francis Regis, 597-1640, a French Jesuit who dedicated his life to missionary work, evangelizing in the mountainous regions of his native country, known for his patience and zeal for saving souls. particularly among the poor, sick, and prisoners. His feast day was on June 16th, and he was canonized in 1737. Saint Legardus, a 12th century Belgian Benedictine nun and mystic who is known for her intense devotion to God. She is a patron saint of the blind and physically disabled. Her feast day is celebrated on June 16th. Saint Quirces and Julieta, early Christian martyrs from the 4th century. Her feast day is observed on June 16th. July 16th is the feast day of Our Lady of Mount Carmel, a title for the Virgin Mary. It commemorates her role as patroness of the Carmelite order and is rooted in the history of Christian hermits who lived on Mount Carmel in the Holy Land. The day is a major feast in the Roman Catholic Church and is often linked to popular devotion surrounding the scapular of Our Lady of Mount Carmel. Origin: the title Our Lady of Mount Carmel comes from the Carmelite order, which was founded by hermits on Mount Carmel in the 12th century. The hermits dedicated their first chapel to Mary. Significance: the feast was established to give thanks for the protection and intercession Mary has provided to the order, particularly during its early years. Tradition: a key part of the tradition is the scapular of Our Lady of Mount Carmel, also known as the Brown Scapular. According to tradition, Mary gave the scapular to Saint Simon Stock. Symbolism: the feast is also linked to the prophet Elijah, who had a contest with the prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel. Liturgical celebration: the date of July 16th was chosen after some conflict with other feasts in the 14th century. It remains the traditional date for the feast in the Roman Catholic Church. August 16th is the feast day for several saints, most notably Saint Stephen of Hungary, the first king of Hungary, and Saint Roche, a saint invoked against the plague. Other saints commemorated on this date include Saint Joachim, father of the Virgin Mary, Saint Diomedes of Tarsus, a physician martyr, and Saint Stamatius, a Greek Orthodox martyr. Major saints commemorated on August 16th: Saint Stephen of Hungary, patron saint of Hungary. He was a warrior king who established Christianity in the country. He is remembered as a compassionate leader who prioritized the needs of his people. Saint Roche, a 14th century saint, known for his compassion during the plague, which he eventually contracted himself, is a popular saint invoked against epidemics and is the patron saint of dogs, invalids, and bachelors. Saint Joachim, the father of the Virgin Mary, while not mentioned in canonical writings, he is widely revered, and traditions describe him praying for a child with his wife Saint Anne. Saint Diomedes of Tarsus, a physician and evangelist from the 3rd century, was martyred for his faith under Emperor Diocletian. Saint Stamatius, a 17th century Greek Orthodox saint known as the New Martyr of Volos, martyred for his Christian faith during the Ottoman era. The saints celebrated on September 16th are Saints Cornelius and Cyprian, both of whom were martyrs. Cornelius was a pope who, along with Bishop Cyprian, defended the Church's ability to remit repentant members who had lapsed during periods of persecution. Saint Cornelius, pope from 251 to 253, he was known for his position that the Church could forgive repentant apostates. He was exiled and died as a martyr in Centum Cella, modern Civitavecchia. Saint Cyprian, a bishop of Carthage. He was a renowned orator and master of moral theology who strongly defended the unity of the Church. He was also known for his writings on the importance of the Church and the primacy of Peter. Saint Margaret Mary Alacoque. Today, October 16th, feast day of Saint Margaret Mary Alacoque. The story of Saint Margaret Mary Alacoque, to whom Jesus appeared and revealed his Sacred Heart. O Sacred Heart of Jesus Christ, have mercy on us. Saint Margaret Mary Alacoque, pray for us. The main saints celebrated on November 16th are Saint Gertrude, the Great, a German Benedictine nun and mystic, and Saint Margaret of Scotland. Saint Gertrude is honored for her devotions to the Sacred Heart of Jesus and for her spiritual writings, while Saint Margaret is recognized for her piety, charity, and role as a queen. Saint Gertrude the Great. Feast Day, November 16th. Who she was, a German mystic and Cistercian nun who joined the monastery at Hofta at age 5. She is the only female saint to be given the title the Great. Key contributions. She began experiencing mystical visions at age 25. She wrote prolifically about her spiritual experiences and teachings. She was an early devotee of the Sacred Heart of Jesus and advocated for the souls in purgatory. Saint Margaret of Scotland. Feast Day, November 16th. Who she was, a Queen of Scotland in the 15th century, known for her piety and charitable work. Key contributions. She was the mother of several children and was dedicated to raising them in faith. Her feast day is also celebrated on November 16th, though Saint Gertrude is the primary saint for that day. And we have December. On December 16th, the Catholic Church remembers Saint Adelaide of Italy, also known as Adelaide of Burgundy, while the Eastern Orthodox Church remembers Saints Modestus, Memnon, and others. Saint Adelaide was the Holy Roman Empress who married Otto the Great. She is the patron saint of princesses, empresses, and second marriages. Saint Adelaide, Catholicism. Born in 931, she was Queen of Italy and later Holy Roman Empress, alongside her second husband Otto the Great. She was known for her piety and attention to the poor, founding monasteries and churches, and she retired to a monastery at the end of her life. She is the patron saint of princesses, empresses, second marriages, abuse victims, and empresses, among other things. She died on December 16th, 1999. Saint Modestus and Saint Memnon, Eastern Orthodox. Saint Modestus was a patriarch of Jerusalem who helped rebuild the city after it was sacked by the Persians. Saint Memnon was an archbishop of Ephesus who is also commemorated today. And that would be all of the saints throughout the year from 1st to 12th month celebrated on the 16th of every month.